I'm BKR Sport. Today's video is unfortunately a bit of a downer. I'm not going to lie to you. It's not got the greatest of energy. I don't want to film this video. I don't want to have to film this video, but I do feel like I have to. I do feel like I have to because it's something that has really infiltrated our game on such a public level nowadays that I do feel needs to kind of be addressed, and hopefully people can understand what is accepted and what isn't accepted when it comes to mental health, you know, the warfare of mental health, and that comes from the people obviously doing it and also the people they are targeting. And obviously today's video, guys, is about Latrell Mitchell, right? A Rabbitohs player who was at the Roosters, was always compared with Greg Inglis coming up, and, you know, we were seeing it, to be completely honest with you. And then unfortunately in the last couple of years, he hasn't been at that level, whether it be due to injury or whether it be due to stuff going off the field. Regardless, he hasn't necessarily reached what we believed what he could achieve, right? And that's not saying that he can't still achieve it, and I do genuinely believe that he will absolutely have a massive year this year. But the issue that I find is that people aren't criticizing his game. They're not actually criticizing if he makes a mistake on the field. They're not actually criticizing if he makes an error. It's more personal stuff, right? And it's more targeted at whether it be because he's Indigenous or whether it be because he might have a bit more weight on him than other people would like to see, which also, mind you, has nothing to do with you guys. But it never seems to be about the actual on-field playing. Even when people do say, oh, on-field he is playing lazy, which is on the field, and you are kind of entitled to saying that. Like, you are entitled and allowed to say that he's not performing at his best, and you are allowed to say that, yeah, he might be quite lazy on the field. But most of those comments then go into he's fat, right, and talking about his weight, and talking about how he's lazy off the field, and talking about all this kind of nonsense, right? And I just don't feel like that is warranted. I don't feel like that's a necessity. Encourage them when it comes to on the field and say, yeah, look, you haven't been great. Because, look, I'll be the first person to say here, Trell last year was incredibly disappointing, and there was a lot of injuries that were there. Obviously, we had our bet that was going to happen for the Titans-Rabbitohs game, and he couldn't play back because he was injured, and for the majority of last year, he was injured. But it's kind of a thing in recent years where we just haven't seen Trell take that next step up. He has to be the star of the Rabbitohs, and they've got such a great team there, and that's why I've got such high hopes for them this year. But then again, I had such high hopes for them last year. But then you give that excuse of the injuries. Now, look, guys, you are allowed to criticize players on the field, as like I said before. This is not something that is not warranted. If you don't believe a player is playing well enough, and they're playing for your team, or they're playing for another team, as long as you're keeping it respectful and saying, oh, listen, yeah, it wasn't his greatest game today, he's not performing up to the standards we want, you know, really kind of criticizing it, but putting it in the right way to make sure that it's not going down the notions that I did say before. And an example of this that I'm going to say here is that there was a post on Instagram today, and there was also a post the other day as well. There's always posts about Latrell Mitchell. You know, he's a massive player in the game, right? But he comes out and he says, mentally, it was definitely draining. It was getting to a point where rugby league wasn't enjoyable, right? So he's talking about, obviously, mental health. He's talking about how, you know, and actually, you know what? I'm going to back this up, and this is very different to him. But in my light, I can understand that, right? I can understand where it does get mentally draining and you don't even want to play/watch rugby league anymore, right? Because for me, when I'm in the thick of the season, say the Titans are struggling, the Titans are really falling down, and I'm going to every single game, right? And you get to this point in the year where you know that they can't make the 8, you know that they're not going to be competing this year, but you still have to go to every single game to keep up that consistency and keep up your support of the team and your passion, right? You get to a point where you're just so mentally drained and you just don't want anything to do with rugby league that time. You do still have to turn up. He still turns up to work. I still turn up to do YouTube and do my streams and whatnot. But there is that point where you're like, kind of screw rugby league. You know what I'm saying? Like, rugby league sucks, to be completely honest with you. And that doesn't mean that we don't love it, right? It doesn't mean that we aren't obsessed with the game. But just in those little moments, everyone does go through them where you're like, oh man, this is just such a drag at this point, right? And I feel like that's kind of what he's meant to be saying here. I feel like that's what he's outlining in the fact that, look, yeah, we're not all going to love it at some point, and it was a tough year last year, and I'm trying to get back into it basically. But people don't look at it that way. You know, you get comments like, he literally says this at the end of every year. You get comments like, always has something going on, this guy. Stop making up these excuses. Take some accountability. You've been at South for 4 years now. Same excuse. It's time to deliver. Well, fun fact for you, they've also made 2 prelims and a prelim and a grand final. No, it would have 2020. It would have been in 2 prelims and a grand final, if I'm not mistaken. I could be mistaken. Could be 1 prelim and 1 grand final. But look, I don't even think he played the grand final. So if he plays that grand final, they might win that one, to be fair, in 2021. They might actually win that one, to be completely honest with you, because they only lost by 2 points, I think it was. You go become a tradie then. Then there's doubt he'll ever be fit enough to be a great fullback. He's so fat. And then I'll bet him 10 meat pies he doesn't. So basically calling him fat. And there are other comments there that are individually Indigenous motivated, right? And I'm very well aware of our country and the difficulties that is between the Indigenous and the white population, right? We're not going to go into this too deeply. That shouldn't have anything to do with what Trell's saying there. Like, the comments about him being fat and the comments about that are Indigenous motivated, what does that have to do with the fact that he's saying that he just had a bit of a mental struggle throughout last year, especially when he had the injury throughout the entirety of the year, right? Missed Origin, missed most of the Rabbitohs games. You know, I don't understand where those come in line there. So what is the point you're really trying to make here? Right? Because it doesn't seem like you're actually insulting the player. It seems like you're insulting the person. So it looks bad on you. Don't look bad on him. It looks bad on you. Right? And I will say as well, I understand that Latrell can be a very polarizing figure. Latrell Mitchell is a very, very polarizing figure where he's always in the news, and whether that be for positive or negative, but at the end of the day, he is always in the news, right? And people will have their opinions. And again, having your opinions is fine, but keep it respectful, man. You know, keep it respectful to the game and to a person. Take the name Latrell Mitchell away from the situation and treat them like a normal person, right? Because players are always going to have these kind of things where at the time, you know, training every day, you know, you've got the pressures of social media, traveling for games, and everyone's like, oh yeah, well, they're living the life, man, they're getting to play footy and that. Yes, but they put a lot of work into it. They put a lot of hard work into it. They're not just sitting on their couch watching the TV, right? They put a lot of hard work into it. I know it's from my boys. I know what they do, right? So for me, this video over here is just saying, and I know it's not going to stop, right? Like, I do know it's not going to stop, but if one person watches this video and says, you know what, I'm not going to go and say something negative about Indigenous people just because Latrell Mitchell is Indigenous and there's something negative in the news right now, even though that isn't even negative. But that's not even negative. That's just a fact. And that's just one post that I'm talking about. That's not the bad ones. That's not one of the worst ones. We all know what happened when I think it was in Penrith last year, right, with a young girl. It's just sad. It's just sad because at the end of the day, we want characters in the game. At the end of the day, you want entertainment, but the entertainment isn't you racially targeting people, and the entertainment isn't you calling people fat. I understand that there are people out there with 6-packs and, you know, eating lettuce for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and really, really fit and healthy, and that's great. Good on you, man. You know, love that for you. It's really awesome to see that you're prioritizing your health. But with that being said, they're playing rugby league. They are training frequently. They are playing an 80-minute game, and they are fit and healthy. You know, there's maybe a couple of players in the past, a lot of players in the past, that at points haven't been, but they're also still out there playing rugby and throwing their body in at another bloke at the line. You know, so to say that they're not fit and healthy is just absurd. And I just don't understand why you can't say, okay, let's put it this way, right? If you want to call someone fat in the game, firstly, don't. But secondly, twist it in a way where it's like, I think he needs to be fitter. Or twist it in a way where it's like, this guy can be so much better. He can be unbelievably better if he just focused on his fitness and focused on his health. Right? That's what you can say. That is such a simple twist to basically what you're saying already. But you're just not being a dick. At the end of the day, he's a human. At the end of the day, we're all human. And at the end of the day, this is a game of rugby league. You know, to have And I understand tribalism, I understand the culturalism, I understand the animosity that we have. I understand Roosters fans don't like him based off of the going from the Roosters to the Rabbitohs and whatnot. I understand all this. And again, he is a polarizing figure that is going to cop criticism, is going to cop massive amounts of chatter in his direction that isn't going to be pretty. But I just hope that one person can see this who does maybe incline to go down that path and just learn from this experience and just learn that maybe there's a better way to go about it. And just learn that these guys, this is a thing that I get a lot as well, right, through BKR Sport. And I say this kind of from my perspective, and I've tried to do this throughout this video so I can really evoke what my thoughts are and the reason why I know exactly, well not exactly at a smaller level, but probably a more actual in-the-face level. But because they've got security in the field, they've actually got security on the field protecting and whatnot, and there's a lot of factors that go into defensive players whilst I'm sitting in the stands. But everyone here, I'm amongst the banter, I'm amongst the sledging, and I cop it, you know, like, I'll give it, but I cop it 100 times harder than what I give it, right? But most people, they think it's just banter, and that's fine, but the abuse that you're sending me is also being sent from all these other people, right? And this is why I translate to that person in Trell, is that if you're commenting that, and you can see all the other comments, there are hundreds of comments like that. And then he's probably got DMs and Instagram messages. Because if I'm getting them, and he's on a much bigger level than me, then he's getting it 100 times. Right? So, and then a lot of people go, oh no, it's just a joke, man, just having a bit of banter. It's all good at the start, right? But once you get that same, you know, GKY, is what I'll say here, so that you guys can have an understanding, or GFY, right? And just like all these, I'm just kind of giving you the letters so that I don't say them. It comes a point where you're just like, well, I've already kind of dealt with this guy's joke, and then this guy's joke, and then this guy's joke, and then this guy's joke, and I've still got about 20 more jokes to go through. You're just like, shit, man. You know, and this is a part of the content game. This is a part of the online world and being a public personality, specifically with Latrell Mitchell, right? Is that you're going to cop this. But I just hope, like I said, that one person sees this, or two people see this, or people in general acknowledge this and think, let's just go about it a different way and not bring in race, not bring in being fat, and not bring in things that are just completely unnecessary. It's just completely unnecessary and not needed, and it doesn't look like you're criticizing the player, you're criticizing the human being. But that's all I have to say here, guys. Much love. You know, obviously, I didn't really want to film this video. I hope I got my point across. It is very difficult talking about this kind of stuff because, obviously, I am usually a high-energy guy. I usually am real passionate and real loud and, you know, having a good time. But I just felt the need to make this video here today because I just feel for the bloke. I just feel for players who cop that kind of shit. And I want to put this out here just before anyone goes, oh, well, the thing with me and Zach Lomax. All I said to Zach was that he'd miss kicks. That's all I said. That is all I said. All I said to Zach is that he would miss his kicks. Very different to what these people out here are saying in regards to Trell and in regards to other players. Nothing of what I said with Zach was personal. What he said to me, personal. But what I said to him had everything to do with the game and that he would miss his conversions, which, fun fact, he did. So the point of the matter is that there is a way to banter, to sledge, and to criticize. And there is not a way to banter, to sledge, and to criticize. But like I said, guys, much love. Like I said, hit that thumbs up button, subscribe if you're new around here, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Catch you later. See ya.